guys, and welcome back to another episode of Federico Talks Watches. Now today I wanted to answer a question that I get asked all the time, and that is, Federico, what watches will increase in value? Now that is a really interesting question. But of course, before we get started, customary wristwatch check. Today I'm still wearing the Omega Speedmaster Apollo 14 manual wind on a distressed leather strap. One of my favorite watches, and definitely one of the watches that I picked up that has increased in value the most. Now, little disclaimer. I don't personally condone investing in watches. I think there are a lot of safer investments out there, and there's ways to make greater returns on your money. However, you can certainly also make a pretty penny if you know what you're doing in the watch market. But it takes a lot of knowledge, studying of the market, and even then, I still think there's other financial instruments out there that are most likely better suited to actually making a return. But it's always nice to buy a watch and not lose money on it or make a little bit of money on it. So, that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to analyze a few of the factors that I think affect watch prices, and maybe you can use this to analyze the market and figure out some nice pickups yourself. So just like anything, watch prices are really affected by supply and demand. Now, I'm far from an economics professor, but supply and demand mean everything. The more a watch is wanted, the more, it's going to command in price, especially if the supply isn't there. Now, what affects demand is certainly something interesting, and there's a lot of factors. Supply is pretty easy, just how many watches of this particular piece are there on the market. But demand, that's a whole different animal. The first thing that probably affects demand is rarity. How rare is the watch? This can definitely, make prices go up, but not always. Rarity is not enough for a watch to increase in value. In fact, none of these one or two factors are enough. It's usually a combination of them, because I can think of a lot of really rare watches that you can pick up for, way under retail. So, rarity is definitely a factor, simply because that limits supply. But it doesn't necessarily affect demand. Another thing you should look out for is the watch historically significant? Did it have a first? Is it connected with an event? For example, the Omega Speedmasters connected with the moon landing, the first watch on the moon. Now, supply of these watches is really large. So, as you can see, one factor by itself doesn't mean a watch is going to increase in value a ton, because a Speedmaster, while it might not lose a ton of value, it certainly isn't increasing a ton, especially most models. Now, there's some, the Snoopy limited edition, or this one, the Apollo 14, that have really gone up in value. That's because they're very limited in supply, they're a special edition, and they're still connected with this historical significance. So historical significance can definitely play into the value of a watch. Another great one is like a Panerai with a Rolex movement. Historically significant because it was used by the frogmen in World War II. Rolex is a very historical brand. Mix in with Panerai, it's the birth of a brand. It's the birth of Panerai. So, collectors, especially collectors of Panerai, really appreciate this. And of course, it's also rare. So the demand is there because it's historically significant. And, there's a limited supply because they really didn't make too many of them. So rarity comes into play as well. Then, of course, there's other factors like brand perception or community. Like, take the SKX, for example. Definitely a watch where supply is not short. They made millions of these, but the community loves it. And there's been a few rumors that it's being discontinued. Now, as far as I can tell, no, it's not. But, the rumors mixed with the fact that it's an iconic watch that the community loves has certainly made it increase in value. Now, yes, the watch is only a couple $100 to begin with, but if you look at the fact that it's, now going for 300 plus, there's definitely a decent return percentage-wise. Do I think it's going to remain this way? I really don't know. The SKX is a weird animal, but it's a great example of how supply doesn't mean everything, simply because community is so much behind the watch, everybody loves it. There's rumors that supply might shrink because they might be stopping it, and this is making the pricing skyrocket. And then another one of my favorite factors is something that I just call oddity. Is it a weird watch? Is there something that makes it particularly interesting? This can be seen with a watch like the Corum Bubble. Now, Corum, certainly not a strong brand, especially with collectors. Their bubble watches are holding value very, very well. Now, I'll pop up a picture right up here. As you can see, there's a ton of different designs. Essentially, what this is a 45 millimeter watch with a heavily domed crystal and artistically painted dials. Yes, it's an out of movement, but they're odd, they're weird, and collectors love this stuff. Slowly, year after year, these pieces are going up in value, even though most other pieces from the brand, simply aren't. And then, of course, we have to talk about exclusivity. A company like FP Journe, for example, they make uber luxury watches. Now, they're almost designed to do extremely well at auction because they limit the supply to themselves. They make them extremely exclusive by bringing values such as it's a living watchmaker, the movements are made out of gold, the quality of the movements and of the architecture is fantastic. So you offer a ton of this value. Add the fact that they make less than 1,000 pieces per year, and of course, everybody who can afford one, or even people that can afford one, really, really want an FP Journe. And they're doing extremely well in the secondhand market, especially the more traditional models that kind of evoke the brand spirit just a little bit more than some of like the sports models that are more of a new venture for Mr. Journe. And brand plays a big part of it as well. I mean, look at Rolex. It's very hard to lose any money on Rolex, but that's because they're a brand at their peak. So while you can look at a brand as a whole, like Patek and Rolex, and yes, you will rarely lose money on a Patek and Rolex if bought properly, you can also look at it on a smaller scale and look at it by model. Now, a brand like Eberhard, for example, a brand many of you, I imagine, haven't heard of, they can be bought for quite a low price. But if you buy one of their historically significant models, it's a different story. Eberhard was a pioneer in chronos, especially single push-piece chronos. So if you buy like a time-only Eberhard, you can get them for about $1,000. But if you want a single push-piece chrono vintage Eberhard, you're certainly gonna pay for that history. So as you can see, there's a ton of factors that come into play. It's not, one or two factors. And don't be fooled into these fake limited editions that are coming out. A ton of people have asked me, Federico, the new Omega Blue Speedmaster, is that going to go up in price? You know what? It's a beautiful watch, but I don't think it's going to go up in price just because Omega said it's a limited edition. And by the way, it's not a true limited edition because I don't know off the top of my head how many exact pieces they made, but in my mind, anything over like 500 pieces is not limited. And I certainly think there's more than 500 pieces out there. The prices were really inflated when they came out, but now they're coming back down to earth. Why? Because apart from a different color, and apart from, Omega calling it limited edition, it's not particularly historically significant. It's not really an oddity because just the colors changed. And, there's no technological marvel in there. It's just a Speedmaster in blue. Not quite enough to hold its own in all these categories. And then, of course, the most significant part of whether your watch is going to increase in value is, of course, the price you bought it at. You might buy a Paul Newman Daytona at auction, one of the watches that is notorious for increasing in value, but if you paid market or above market price, then of course it might not go up any further. But you can pretty much make a decent return on any watch if you buy it at the right price. Now, of course, that is easier said than done. It takes a ton of scouring, and sometimes you don't even find what you want at the right price. You find opportunities, kind of like my Omega single push piece chrono stop. Definitely not a valuable watch by any stretch of the imagination, but I got such a good deal on it that I'm definitely not going to lose money. In fact, if I hold it, maybe I'll even make a little bit. Anyway, guys, I know this wasn't particularly in-depth. I just wanted to give you my ideas off the cuff of what I think make watches increase in value. And it's definitely not one or two things. It's a combination of things. And, market trends and things change very, very quickly. So, in conclusion, I do think there's better ways to make money, and I don't think watches should be bought as an investment. However, if, a watch you buy fits a lot of these criterias, there's certainly potential to make a return. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. And of course, don't forget to follow me on Instagram, that's Federico Talks Watches, and subscribe to this YouTube channel if you don't want to miss any more content. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.